I'm Becky Losh. I've been with ICON for almost 3 years. One of my primary focuses as a global recruitment program specialist is early talent. So, really trying to find roles and ways that we can share about opportunities with ICON for internships and recent graduates. But really, what we want to tell you all about here is just some potential paths to explore. We don't know what phase really you're in of looking for those opportunities, but want to make sure you know when I was in high school and college, I had no idea the possibilities. I didn't know what a CRO was. So that's what I hope this overview will give you. And for the sake of time, because we want to make sure we do have time for you to hear from the panel and ask questions, we'll go ahead and kick off. This is just a quick overview of what I'll touch on. So who is ICON? Who are we? Where do we operate? We're a global healthcare intelligence partner. I'm going to talk about what a CRO actually is in just a little bit, but we've been consistently ranked among the top CROs and best employers by Forbes and several other recognizing parties year over year. And what we do is we help develop life-saving drugs and medical technology through a variety of services that we provide to pharma and biotech companies. So this is just a glimpse of where we operate, and this may actually be slightly outdated, but as you can see, we have a rather large global footprint and we operate on all continents. We have offices, labs, clinics, and imaging centers in over 40 countries and over 41,000 combined employees working in these. So a lot of what you all have seen probably with trials is COVID, right? We had a lot of studies and things going on in there in every region. So it's a lot going on, and it's really exciting to see what happens in each region. This is just, like I said, we are recognized year over year. This is just a sampling of the accolades that our organization has received. So just wanted you all to see, kind of what we do and where the recognition comes from. Some of them are on vaccines, some of them are on pharma industry, some of them are about how we're rated as an employer, best large employer, best employers for women, best employers for diversity. So overall, pretty great place to work. And so now what is a CRO? Is typically referred to as either a clinical research or a contract research organization. I'm not going to read this verbatim to you, but listed below, and you'll see some of the logos. Those are some of our competitors. Those are other CROs. Companies like Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, those are pharma companies, and they contract with us. That's why we're called a contract research organization. We have two different divisions that can help with either the full spectrum of a trial, meaning we start in phase 1, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute, and go all the way through to where it gets FDA approval and continue studies after it's in the market. Or we can do what I call our a la carte or strategic solutions services, where we just help with one piece of the process. That can be regulatory consulting, data analysis, marketing consulting, or phase 1, phase 3, just a piece of it. So we do a little bit of everything for pharma and medical device companies, as well as some government regulations and consulting. So just to give you an idea, if you're not familiar, Danielle mentioned that we have a student group that's from a lot of different degree backgrounds, but this is just kind of a quick snapshot of what the drug development process looks like. So when we receive things, what we're doing is in those last 4 sections, phase 1 through 4 of in-human trials. And it gives you an idea of how many subjects and at what level we actually get into. The first 2 phases are typically healthy patients, and it's efficacy and safety and things like that. And then phases 2 start to phase into it. Phase 3 and 4 are your populations that are actually facing the disease or illness that is being treated. But those first 2 places in the discovery science, those happen before it gets to us. So that's your pharma companies, your independent labs coming up with a molecule that they think will work. Some studies happen in animal molecules after that. We don't do any of that part. We just do the in-human pieces. And this is just to kind of give you an idea. So I use like Tylenol as an example. Tylenol is something that's been around for a long time. It's a commonly used pain reliever, fever reducer, something like that. But if you think that when that was developed, there were thousands and thousands of samples being tested. And as it went through each phase of the trial process, more and more were eliminated because they weren't safe, they weren't effective, they weren't able to be produced in the right ways to administer. So a lot of things that we test, part of that is testing, does it need to be administered orally through a vein, under the skin, and so what is the best way? Does it have to be infused through an IV? So as they figure out all of those things, it gets narrowed down until finally you have one FDA approved medicine that can take anywhere on average from 8 to 15 years. And the average cost when this was updated was a couple of years ago was $2.6 billion on an individual drug. The patent is only good for 20 years, and that's from molecule to FDA approval. And so we want to make sure that we try to get those studies done as efficiently as possible. And that's why pharma companies, biotech will outsource pieces of that to help them get done as efficiently as possible so that they have the longer time in the market before their patent expires. This is just to give you an idea. A lot of times when people hear clinical research, they immediately go to oncology, like cancer research or childhood diabetes, things that you hear about pretty often, heart disease. But we actually touch on a really broad range of therapeutic areas in the testing that we do. We also touch on some rare diseases, which are things that affect like very, very minimal numbers of the entire global population. But it's something that's significant enough that we need to look for cures or treatments. And just some ideas of why you would want to work here. I've been here almost 3 years. I can say my favorite thing is the people. But a lot of people really go into studying science and health for the impact that they can make. I know that I don't have that background, but I love knowing that I'm helping build the teams and providing support to the people that are really doing that science and what I would consider life-saving work. So it's very meaningful work. Again, we're really ranked high for best employers. We focus on having a good work-life balance and really comprehensive and competitive rewards. And another reason that I really like to promote working here is that we really have a diverse and inclusive workplace. This is just an example of our community groups. We're recently kind of branching out some subgroups, just for example, within Dawn to really touch on specific disabilities. So neuro, autoimmune, migraine, just some subgroups that really touch on how anything that maybe isn't always recognized, it's an invisible disability, and how we can provide resources and support to our employees. And we really like being able to have those groups. I'm a member of our Now, Dawn, and Space groups because I fit into all those categories. And it's really nice to know you're not alone in the workplace, that there's somebody out there that can relate to the phase of life or challenges that you might be facing. If it's a disability, we talk about accommodations that might work for you that have worked for others. So it's really fun to get connected across the globe with our teammates through those groups. And then we can touch on this again at the end, but these are some ways to apply. Hopefully you all utilize Handshake. Obviously LinkedIn is easy. And then there is a link to our careers website. There are blogs, upcoming events, lots of other details there. And we will have someone at the virtual career fair. We'll have some sessions. I believe that's on the 21st. You all might correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your virtual career fair is then, and we have some group sessions to tell you about different areas within ICON and one-on-ones available for recruiters so you can talk to them specifically about roles that you've seen. I know I went through that quickly, but hopefully that gives you time to hear from our panel. So I'll go ahead and turn everything over to Connor.
Thank you, Becky. Hello, everyone. My name is Connor Quilley, and I am from the class of 2019. I received my degree here at St. Joseph's University in International Business, and I work here at St. Joe's as the Assistant Director of Affinity Group Engagement in our Alumni Relations team, and I will be your moderator today. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our panelists. First, we have Trang Lee. She is from the class of 2015 of the University of Sciences and received her degree in biochemistry and is a CRA for ICON. Next is Carrie Roman, and she is from the class of 2018 and received her degree in interdisciplinary health services and is a project associate for ICON. Next is Monique Schatzman from the class of 2006. Monique received her degree in psychology and minored in biology. She is a clinical trial manager for ICON. Next, we have Mirella Sia from the class of 2010, University of the Sciences. She received her MBA in pharmaceutical healthcare business, and she is an executive director of clinical data science for Icon. Next, we have Amish Vora, and he is from the class of 2015, University of the Sciences. He received his degree in pharmacy and is a medical writer for Icon. So I would like to sort of start off this panel with all of you. And if each of you could speak about your college experience, either at UP, SJU, U Sciences, PCPS, and what your major was and how you ended up at Icon. And also, if any classes or particular programs helped you get to the point where you're at today?
Hi, everyone. Um, Again, as Connor said, my name's Trang, and I went to U Sciences for my bachelor's in biochemistry. And I'm local to the area, so I, spent half of my time on campus in the dorms, and then the other half I spent commuting. But I love U Sciences. I know it's merged with St. Joe's. I've been also around the area, have seen, the merge happening, and it's been nice to see. But yeah, so how I ended up at Icon, when I graduated, I worked at a lab for a year. And I realized that kind of wasn't the path that I wanted to go down. And so I kind of honestly just went job hunting online, researching like all different roles, and stumbled upon clinical research and kind of just went down the rabbit hole of what that is. And I found a graduate CRA program where they pretty much trained us for 6 months to get into the CRA role. And I've been at Icon for over 7 years now. And throughout those years, I've gone from entry level and now senior CRA. I've worked on so many different trials, from like Crohn's disease to osteoarthritis to COVID trials.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie. I graduated from St. Joe's in 2018 with a bachelor's in interdisciplinary health services. I've been with Icon for about a year and a half. Right after I graduated St. Joe's, I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was kind of bouncing around with jobs, and I was a health coach for a little bit, and realized that there wasn't much growth in that field. So I was kind of looking at different skills I had learned from being a health coach and looked into project management, which is what I'm working in now at Icon. I work directly under the project managers on the studies, helping them with a lot of administrative tasks. But the best part is I get to work with every functional area within the study, like the CRAs and the data managers. And so it's nice. It's a really great learning opportunity in terms of just learning about how clinical trial life cycles work. And I'm hoping to ultimately become a project manager in the future.
So I graduated in 2006 from St. Joe's with a major in psychology. I had a interesting career path, as I started out when I first was at St. Joe's as a biology major because I wanted to be a doctor, and then decided my sophomore year that I thought that maybe I wanted to try a different path, and really enjoyed my psychology classes that I had taken. So I switched my major to psychology and thought that I initially was going to be a therapist. And then when I graduated in '06, when I went to get my master's degree in mental health counseling and psychology. And then 2008 happened, and we all know 2008 was not the best year to get into with the economy. And at that point in time, I had been in school for 6 years straight through, and I didn't really want to continue on as a therapist, and needed a break, and decided to look on. This is pre LinkedIn days, so I looked on Monster, and I stumbled upon a job as a research assistant to study coordinators at a clinical research site in Philadelphia. And that's where I pretty much got my start in the industry. So I was a study coordinator at a private clinical research site who they ran studies mainly for psychotropic drugs. So we ran inpatient and outpatient trials for schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, etc. And then we also did a lot of pain studies. And with being in that type of area, we had a lot of hepatitis C trials. So it was one of those experiences that I was so happy to switch, do a complete 180 and switch over into the industry. And then eventually I just worked my way up. In 2013, my site was acquired by PRA, who then was acquired by Icon 2 years ago. So I've technically been with Icon, formerly PRA, since 2013. I was a clinical research associate CRA for 7 years, and I've been a CTM now for 2 years. So I've gotten to manage and collaborate, work on many different indications for many different trials, many different sponsors, and it's been a really rewarding experience.
So oddly enough, me and Monique are very similar in terms of how we started. So my name is Marla Siha. I graduated from the University of Sciences with my MBA in pharmaceutical business in 2010. Kind of like Becky, I thought the only jobs that you could do if you were interested in science was a doctor or working in a lab. And so I started my degree as pre-med, same as Monique. And in my sophomore year, I figured this was not the best path for me. I went to undergrad at LaSalle, and they had a new program starting, which was called Integrated Science and Business Technology. Weirdly enough, everything I do spun off that decision, which is working in science, understanding business, and technology being at the forefront of everything we do for clinical trials. I focused on biotechnology, which is the space that Icon also supports. And I learned the basics of a scientist did not know how to talk business. That was the whole thing, right? So coupled with all of my lab work, it was all about presenting. Weirdly enough, I went to a career fair. Icon was there. I submitted my resume and I got an internship in the summer of my junior year. And then, started knowing nothing about what a CRO was, what about data was, and how clinical trial. I had a great manager there where I was able to ask all the questions. So as a student, if you get an internship, don't be afraid to ask questions about what you're learning and immerse yourself with the other team members to really understand, which shapes, do I like this? Will I like this? And are there other opportunities? Lucky enough, I stayed and was very interested in it. I got a job, and then Icon afforded me the opportunity to have tuition reimbursement. So University of Sciences was quite interesting because I always knew I wanted to pursue my master's, but having a master's that was focused on the pharmaceutical industry helped me in learning stuff that really adapted to what I was doing day to day into my job. We had teachers and professors that were all from the industry. So I got the opportunity to learn about marketing, bringing a trial, and other aspects that I wasn't involved with, which can help shape where I wanted to go with my career. One thing for me that really helped me is in my master's, the classes were really focused on leadership and presenting. One of the things that probably is not my favorite, but I learned so much by giving opportunities to present in front of a large group, to be questioned by my professor. I think one of my first was, if you didn't answer the question, you would be fired, which was intimidating as like a young student. But now in terms of my role, I mean, I think just the other day I presented to over 1,800 staff members. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I did not have the opportunity in my MBA and at University of Sciences to be tested and be able to continue to cultivate that craft that is critical to the success of my role.
Hi, my name is Mish. I'm a graduate of U Sciences 2016. And while career is only one aspect of life, it took me until the end of my 6 years at U Sciences to figure that out. So congratulations to you all here trying to pursue and understand those things is really commendable. My career path, as long as it took me to mature, it took even longer for me to figure out what I wanted to do. So after getting my PharmD, I worked at Rite Aid, and then I was a manager for a compounding pharmacy. And then I did inpatient clinical work in hospice throughout COVID. During those opportunities, I was granted many opportunities to write medical literature, write commercial literature, write a bunch of different documents and manuscripts and publications that targeted different audiences. And these opportunities, in addition to working through COVID, which, if you're not familiar, hospice care is end of life care, and that had really burned me out throughout COVID. So, I found something that I liked, and I also was torn because I didn't like what I was currently doing at that time. So I had reached out and to a friend who works at Icon, and I asked for information and how to get involved within medical writing at Icon. I was onboarded pretty quickly afterwards, and the experience has been pretty good. Icon has their medical writing team is known as the GMC, the Global Medical Communications Team, and they provide ample training, especially if you are an individual who's coming with a doctorate level degree. You may have only had one publishing experience or two based on your own thesis and maybe some other research you're doing. But GMC offers a suitable and a really robust training curriculum to help bring you up to speed in getting these documents published.
Great. Thank you all for my next question for all of you is if you want to go more into your current role at Icon, what you do more, if you want to explain more and what your day-to-day looks like, and how it might differ between all of you. So we'll go in reverse order. So I'm going to go back to Amish, if you don't mind starting for us.
So as a medical writer, for those of you who are interested in this career path, you are either pursuing a doctorate level degree or you're pursuing other higher level education to get to this point. So if you're pursuing these types of educations, your day-to-day is actually going to look really similar to what you're doing in those educations. For example, I spend a lot of my day outside of emails and meetings, I spend a lot of my day studying. And why I do that is because in order to write, you have to understand. And I'm sure if you're pursuing a doctorate level education, you're reading many papers, you're reading many manuscripts, abstracts, you're going to congresses, you're getting information to help you write better. And that's part of the job. So my day-to-day, I spend majority, about 20% of my time with emails and meetings, and then the other 80% with developing deliverables for clients. And those deliverables, they include abstracts, they include manuscripts. So phase 1, 2, 3, such as Becky was talking about, those documents for those supplemental materials. For clinical trials, you also have clinical trial reports, your CSRs, the documentation that occurs before you start your trial. Icon's Global Medical Communications team primarily does scientific writing. So we don't do too much of the regulatory writing for those documents. However, when those documents you have to be able to read them so that you can write the manuscripts that come after. In addition to doing published deliverables, at GMC, you'll also be tasked with strategic development. So what this is things like systematic literature reviews. And I'm sorry about all this really big nomenclature. I'm really trying to dumb it down for you, but it is a lot of time spent reading what other people have written and trying to understand and digest that information and then present that data to the client, so that they're able to modify their endpoints or whatever their objective is. You're trying to go through what is already published and boil it down, or maybe extract information and make decisions based off that information. There is a paucity of data out there. There's tons of literature out there. And so for those of you who are pursuing those degrees, your day-to-day will continue with what you're doing at school in a lot of regards.
So currently in my role in a leadership position, I would say I would want to make it more exciting, but my day pretty much is meetings from the beginning of the day until the end, nonstop, and trying to determine how to keep up with my emails. So my team is focused on data delivery in terms of building and reviewing the data that someone will do to submit for, an FDA submission, as well as the technology to how we're going to collect it. My team is client aligned directors. So each of my directors is engaged with a specific pharmaceutical company or biotech client. And so with that, I'm either having meetings with my team in order to give updates of what's going on, what initiatives we're working on. We just had a meeting today where we are developing what the goals are for our organization and the rest of the team. It could be also talking to clients. So Monday I had a meeting with a client, going over how are things going, how's my director going, are things going well. Next week I'll be traveling face-to-face for a roundtable meeting where the client is meeting with all their CROs to reinvigorate and determine how we're going to present at meetings, present material and status reports. And so, yeah, and one-to-ones, of course, with my team members. The biggest thing I will say that I think is critical for any job, and probably everyone could say, is project management. I'm a big to-do list person. In my job, it's a lot about what we need to do, what we need to prioritize, and how I ensure I empower the leaders underneath me and delegate responsibilities to them throughout the day. And so that takes I think a lot of time in terms of performing that as well. And so, yeah, that's how my day to day is in terms of running, I guess, a larger department and ensuring that we're making the clients happy. And the last thing that I'll end with is risks and problems. So problem solving is the biggest thing that I'm trying to do every day. Is if my team has a problem, I want them to be able to identify it, create a solution, and then present it to me. But then I'm helping them to create risk mitigation plans to support that. And also if that gets escalated, so like say your teacher tells someone at the higher level, the principal, and then the principal calls your mom, I'm kind of at the highest level where I may need to go in to smooth a relationship over and to make sure that the client feels like we're working on it and we can address and resolve the issue.
Just to piggyback off of the problem solving, I would say being a clinical trial manager, that's a lot of the job. I pretty much day to day, there's meetings. I'm currently working on a influenza trial for transmission to household contacts. This study started prior to COVID-19. So as you can imagine, it was there was a lot of hurdles to overcome as this trial started right before the pandemic hit. And as we all know, the flu was absent for quite some time, but last year it blew up. So what I do day to day is manage the CRAs, the study team. On my study, we have central monitoring associates, also called CMAs. And then also working in collaboration with the project manager and project associates to ensure that we're basically providing the sites with everything they need to appropriately run the clinical trial. We're looking at not only managing the study team itself and the sites that are working on our trial. So currently on my study, we work with 30 different sites. So that's managing the enrollment of flu patients. And depending on the type of protocol that you're working on and the indications that you're working on, it's a very fast-paced type of trial. So basically, we don't know if a patient's coming in until that day because they have to have symptoms of flu within 48 hours in order to be in the study. So it's extremely fast-paced. That means you have to ensure that sites are properly supplied with their lab kits, with enough drug. So what I do is I have probably about 5 different spreadsheets open currently right now on my desktop. It helps me stay organized and be able to help my team better manage their sites and the vendors that we work with to ensure that we're meeting our timelines for the sponsor to get this drug to hopefully approval. It's also not just about the data, but it's also important that we are providing quality work. As Mirella, as she mentioned before, you know, things don't always go exactly as planned. So you're constantly having to be flexible and trying to problem solve to find the best solution and mitigate the risks that are associated with certain issues. So for example, one of my sites, I got an email bright and early on Thanksgiving morning that the FDA had issued a warning letter for one of the other trials they were working on, and that we were halting enrollment for that study. So it's all about managing not only your team, but being able to collaborate with different functional groups and providing the best successful outcomes for the study. So that's, and I think it goes, I really have to credit my time at St. Joe's and also my time getting my master's degree. Having those psychology and philosophy classes, actually, it really helped be able to understand people's behaviors and how to appropriately respond in maybe some tense situations. So I credit that, and then obviously years of experience in the industry and as a CRA has really helped me be able to be in this position.
Sure. So my day today is kind of off of what Monique said, just management of the trial. I don't have to put out as many fires as Monique and Marilla, but if there is assistance that they need, that's where I would step in and help them. I have a ton of trackers just to make sure that the study is on pace to achieving milestones and making sure any new team members on the study have all the accesses that they need to study systems, or anyone who's left the study, I make sure that they no longer have accesses. I help track like the subjects, whether they're being enrolled or discontinued. I track study trainings, making sure the study team is completing all their trainings and making sure that new trainings are assigned correctly, or if they're no longer needed, they're retired. I help manage the meetings, so I will schedule meetings for the team, create agendas, take minutes, or just jot down all the actions, issues, and decisions. And I just basically do whatever the project managers or other study team members need help with. It's a lot of administrative type of tasks, but this is definitely a position where you're learning a lot, like I mentioned before. So if any part of clinical trial management is something that you might be interested in, the project associate role is just a great way to get your foot in the door and learn as much as you can, because there's a lot of opportunities for growth beyond this role.
So my role as a CRA, I work actually really close to clinical trial managers, so what Monique does, and we pretty much work together to like support and monitor sites. So, and I guess as a CRA, I'm the first point of contact for sites. So if they need anything, they would contact me first, and I'll kind of go through the appropriate channels and get them their answers or whatever they need. My day to day, I guess I'll go over this week for everyone, because I do travel a lot for work, like half the time I'm traveling. So say Monday, I kind of caught up on emails, prepared for my site visits, got all my trackers, everything that I needed ready. And Monday afternoon, I had to fly out to Oklahoma. So I was monitoring a site in Oklahoma on Tuesday and Wednesday. And when I say monitor a site, it's some of the tasks that we do. So we're making sure sites are properly trained on the protocol. we're reviewing patient data, reviewing regulatory documents, making sure everything's properly documented and reported as needed. We're visiting pharmacies, reviewing the pharmacy logs, and our patients dispense the correct medications that they were assigned, and when they return them, did they comply with their dosage? And also just ensuring that sites have all their study supplies and have access to everything they need to pretty much run the trial smoothly at their site. And yeah, and making sure any issues that we find during the visit are appropriately followed up on and corrected as needed. So that's like kind of monitoring a trial. There's also different phases to a trial. So I could be in a startup phase to a trial. So I may have to go out on site to do a pre-study visit, which is where I pretty much meet with a site and see if they meet all the requirements to run a trial. There's also the initiation phase where you're going out and training all the site staff and making sure they have all their supplies to start the trials. So yeah, so mainly that's the biggest part of my job is traveling, going out to sites, meeting with site staff. And when I'm home, I'm just catching up on emails and writing my reports.
So from all of your guys' positions, it sounds like there's many skills to that deal with project management, proper communication, time management. Do you think what are some other skills, and this is sort of open up for the whole group who wants to answer, that are important for someone in your field? And how did you get those experiences? I know Mirella spoke about her MBA courses and doing presentations and for leadership. Monique spoke about, her psychology classes and being able to handle, conversations and different things like that, and also being in the trade. But are there other skills that any of you want to speak about that are important to your role?
I'll go first. And just as a quick recap, I feel like maybe this might kind of organize things. Trang and Monique, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys more so monitor clinical trial sites before the trial starts. You get everything prepared, and then you kind of keep things flowing when it's going on. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's different phases. So you have the startup phase.
Right.
The CRAs typically aren't involved in the initial startup. They begin when we're going to do site selections. So they'll go out to different sites that are proposed to work on the trial. Normally it's sites that we've worked with in the past or that the sponsors have worked with in the past. And they'll basically check to see if the facilities are adequate and if the staffing is appropriate in order for them to successfully run the trial. So it's called a pre-study visit. And then my favorite phase is the maintenance phase. So that's when you're in it, the sites are seeing patients, the CRAs are going on site, and I know what Trang goes through with traveling. I traveled every week for 7 years, so I know what she's been through. And you're basically just ensuring that you're monitoring the trial appropriately. And I think a lot of people think that it's only about it's so important what the CRAs do, because they are the first line of contact with the sites, and typically the sites they gain a rapport with the CRAs. So it's important that the CRAs have that great communication with their sites in order for the study to really be run well and efficiently. There are demands all the time that happen. Like, for example, my study goes through, they call them wave cleanings. So typically it's before database lock, when you're finishing up, you're done enrollment and you're cleaning the data, making sure everything's entered and reviewed. And what they do is that they'll say, okay, we need all the documents reviewed by this date, and they don't usually give you much notice for that. So we work as a team, and I think that's it really is all about teamwork, because it's not just the relationship between the CTM and the CRAs, but it's also working with the PA, with the PM, working with everyone in the trial through maintenance to have the appropriate outcomes for that study and provide the data that's quality work. And it happens all the time. I've seen studies where we'll go through interim analysis and they'll get the results back and it'll show that the drug isn't effective and doesn't work. So what you thought was going to be a study that was going to go on for an additional year or 6 months or so ends up just ending. So there's different that's why it's so important for the CRAs to go out there and do the job and work with the team so that we catch that before the drug goes to market and we find out all these issues after it's already out there and approved. So, but yeah, I'm sorry, I totally took over that part.
No, I thought, you know, all five of us, we work in very different areas in terms of the stage of the clinical trial. And so we all require different skill sets. And so what I was kind of alluding to and what you were mentioning is that while you're working and monitoring the clinical trial sites, this is during the beginning and during the trial where the initiation, as you said, and then the management of the trial and these sites when they bring in people. Whereas Carrie, who is more of who's a project associate with ICON, she's doing a lot of the background and logistics to keep your jobs in flow. Is that correct? Is that my understanding?
Yeah, so she directly she helps with providing mainly all the administrative behind the scenes things. So for example, providing sites with appropriate access to systems. So a lot we work with some studies can work with 5 different vendors where different site contacts will need different accesses to systems. So the PAs typically manage that. They, as Kerry mentioned before, basically managing the training, making sure that the CRAs, the study team is having the correct training rolled out. And as we know, like updates happen all the time. So if we have an amended protocol, she's the one responsible for making sure that training's rolled out to all the appropriate people on the study team so that training is documented. So there's a lot of collaboration between both project management and the clinical team to make sure that the sites have everything they need for running the trials.
Yeah, and then I guess I don't work during the trial, I work after the trial. So my skill set would be more so with writing the literature from the data that Monique and Trang are making sure the sites are able to collect, which would include reading and interpreting literature, and beyond that, building deliverables, building graphs, listening and meetings with the authors and the trial designers, and incorporating their feedback and designing what their therapeutic narrative really is and getting that written out. And then Morella, I'm sorry, I'm learning a lot too. What stage of, as a you're in clinical data science for ICON, correct? So at what part of the clinical trial would you be?
So we're trying to sell and to gain the business, right? To get a new client. We're involved in the creation of everything from startup, the technology, and the conduct phase, and then getting us to a phase where we are then able to deliver it to then give to you, right? To do the CSR, to give to our stats and programming team that gets ready for the submission.
So you're the individual in the background doing all of that?
My team, not myself, right? Boy, I lost, yes. But yeah, that's what my team performs. Yes. Yeah. I think one thing I wanted to point out in school, because we talked about project management, I think it's the difference of when you get a project and you're doing it yourself, and then you get a team project. Okay, so in work, it's very easy when you are an individual contributor to go, I'm going to work late. I'm going to check this email. I'm going to make sure this is great, right? I have full control over everything I'm doing and what I'm delivering, which could be similar to a project at school or to what you're doing. Then all of a sudden you're thrown on a team at school. Who's going to take the lead role? Are they going to do what are we going to have people work together? Are we all cohesive in terms of our presentation? Do we have the same ideas? Those basic skill sets you learn in those team presentations that you get in school are part of every working day that you have, right? Because you have to work with other people. You have to Monique's, your personality and how your tone and what you deliver to appear to your client is different. And those are skill sets you learn in those team environments, I think, at school that really parlay into when you get a job in business.
Yeah, I was gonna go back to like the skills that are needed. I think it kind of goes across the board for everyone here is teamwork and collaboration. One of Icon's values is collaboration. So just being able to point out that you can work well with others and communicate with others are really big skills because ultimately we're all working on teams to help deliver this project. So that's a main one that I think anyone can kind of speak to. We all probably have experience working, whether it's a group project or if you're actually a part of like a team sport or any other outside of activities you're involved in at St. Joe's. It's just a great thing to speak about whenever you're applying for a job. And another skill that I think is important to talk about is like time management and organization. There's just a bunch of things being thrown at you day to day in terms of tasks and things, and some random things can come up that can throw you off of your like priority task list. So you want to just make sure that you can speak to your organizational skills and being able to manage your time efficiently, which I know as a college student that you all can probably speak to. You're all going to classes every day and probably involved in other activities outside of your classes. So just being able to speak to things like that and being able to manage your time are definitely great skill sets to talk about whenever you're going into a job interview.
Great. Thank you so much for all your input on the skills. My last final question for our panelists, if we could not do it quickly, but sort of fast so we can get to the student questions and answers, is what has been one of your memorable moments from your career at Icon? What's been a highlight for you? What's special that you remember?
So I actually, when I was study coordinator, and it was actually PRA that was the CRO that was managing the trial. So now Icon. I worked on the Gilead Hep C trials for Harvoni and Sovaldi, and we were the highest enrolling site. And as we know, those drugs are now pretty much the cure for hepatitis C. So working on those studies and having those patient interactions, and being able to see the reward in a drug that you worked on, the impact that it had once it came to market and was saving people's lives. And it reminds you of why you're doing the work that you do. And I can remember, and this was years ago, but I remember when I had a patient that was in the trial, who we never knew the results of the trial. We never received. It was always, we were blinded to that. But a year after the trial had ended, she came back and brought us a basket and thanked us because her hepatitis C was cured from a clinical trial drug. So I think that's the most rewarding thing, is seeing what happens with these drug trials and how the impact it can make.
I had like something similar. So I think in my job, my family and friends don't know what data management was, what a CRO was. And so I just remember seeing a commercial for the portfolio of drugs that I worked on. And I pointed to the screen and I said, that's what I did, right? I worked on that to get this to COPD and asthma patients. And so Monique says, sometimes you don't realize what impact you're having and looking at the minutia of what you do in your job. But I think that's the most impactful part, that we're helping patients, right, with the work that we do.
For me, same as previously said, but I got to work on the COVID trials, and usually trials take so long to go from beginning to end, but it was really cool to kind of see be part of a trial for the entire process and seeing it go out to market and have such an effect on the world.
I think one of the coolest things is that the fact that Icon is a global company, so I get to work with people from all over the world within my studies. So yeah, just building relationships and learning from people that come from everywhere is probably the best part.
One thing you need to realize is that your degree is really versatile, and you don't have to lock yourself into a career. And so that's what I was saying when in the beginning of the meeting, how I thought it was really commendable that you're here trying to figure it out. What position would be best? It would be nice if someone just gave you a black and white answer, but I think the purpose of us meeting with you is to show you that with that degree, you can either go into clinical trial management, such as Trang and Monique, and they're sharing some of the skills that can go along with that. Or if you're interested in more introverted, if you're more introverted, I personally work in a home office and I don't ever see my coworkers because a lot of my work is reading. So if you're more introverted, that's something you can pursue with higher education, such as a doctorate degree. And, again, at risk of I'm not trying to sound like your dad or anything, but life's a journey for you to figure out, and like you don't have to hard commit. So I started my journey working in retail pharmacy. Well, I started working when I was 16, so technically as a pizzeria person, but after I graduated, I did retail, then I did compounding, and then I did clinical, and then I did medical writing. And these are all, well, the first three are kind of big shifts, and then this fourth one is a huge shift. And so just like that, life isn't gonna be able to like tell you you can go down one road and only one road. But if it is like that for you, great. And I wish you success with biomedical engineering. In my opinion, I think your choices are so versatile, you don't even have to ask what's the best, because just find out what you love. For example, you can go into clinical science, you can go and pursue higher education if you want to write, maybe you want to be a doctor. Like, the opportunities are endless. So I'll just stop there. I know you wanted a black and white answer. I don't think anyone on the board would give it to you or should give it to you, or anyone in general. And if anyone tells you that this is what you should do, I think ultimately you should spend that time and figure out if it's what you want to do. Maybe talk to someone independently, or shadow someone, or I don't know. Anybody else on the panel, would you agree or disagree?
So I was talking to my cousin who's also newly out of her master's, and I think it's overwhelming to know where to go, right? So I totally agree with what you're saying is, do I go on a CRO website? What jobs do I search in the bar on LinkedIn to even know where to go? So I think from an Icon perspective, go on our website, right? Look up, medical science, and then see what other opportunities, and start reading some of the job descriptions to see what kind of interests you and what's out there. So, I mean, medical writing, the clinical trial manager, my team is clinical data science, clinical data scientist, clinical risk manager. These are things maybe you could Google and look up that maybe helps drive you to that. Because I do know, right? I mean, it is overwhelming to go look for a job and try to figure out what do I know and what job am I even putting in the field, especially, like I said, when you're searching under a CRO or a pharmaceutical company. So that would be the only advice I would give in terms of where to hone your search in. At least you know what a CRO is now. An Icon can be a ground to understand what jobs exist that allow you to see what may be a fit for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, both of you. I'm going to pull Becky in too, because I know Icon is attending our career fair in a couple weeks. So maybe, Becky, you can talk about some of the roles you're going to be looking for there, and entry level, what are just some areas the students could start in?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad that Amish took that direction. I typically do tend to give a little bit more of that black and white answer simply because I feel like students are asking for where to start exploring. But I love the perspective. And whether even if you're in a master's or a doctorate degree, you are not tied to a career path. There is so much you can continue to learn and grow and cross train. You can start in one direction and completely shift. So never feel like you have to decide today what you're going to be when you grow up. Even if you're 40 and you're grown up, you don't have to decide today that that's what you're going to do. Follow your passion, continue to learn, be excited, be curious. But there are some roles, and I will tell you, depending on what level you're at and when you're looking for either an internship or full-time employment, keep an eye on our website. It's a great way to just explore job descriptions. There's blogs about different roles, people's career paths on our careers website as well. So lots of different things, but I'll suggest a couple titles for you to try and search for, whether it's on our site or competitor sites, that are great ways to explore. Project associate, site management associate, a TMF specialist, a clinical data coordinator, clinical research coordinator, medical research associate. Those are ways to get your foot in the door, learn the teams that they interact with, that they network with. Carrie can probably share that as a project team member, you are networking with so many departments across the organization. You are developing a huge network of contacts that you can say, what do you do exactly? Like, I know where my piece ties into what you do, but what does your team do with that information that I then share with you? So there's so many ways that you can go, and you're not tied when you start in one entry level role to a specific career path. I think we've seen over 30 different career paths that project associates alone have taken and branched out. It doesn't have to follow to a project manager role. It can follow in any direction. So there's lots of opportunity. I am going to kind of summarize this and pop it into the chat just for easier reference. The roles, our careers website, and I'll go ahead and address the tuition reimbursement question. So just our current tuition reimbursement benefit is for current employees that are continuing their education. As of right now, we don't have a policy that would repay anything you obtain prior to coming, unless that's something negotiated at a individual level, but we don't have a formal policy for that. But undergrad is a great place to look at that, or even your master's level. Certificates and continuing education, once you're an employee, you request that, and as long as it's kind of in line with anything you can learn and do at Icon, which is pretty much anything except maybe basket weaving, then you can get reimbursement for continuing that. We want to see people learn and grow, and it just, even if you stay in the same role after continuing that, you're learning and you're growing and you're becoming a more well-rounded member of the team. So I hope that answered everything.
Thanks, Becky.
I'll start, and then if any of you have any input based on your education, please feel free to share. I think it kind of depends. Some of our entry level roles, we see I've actually seen doctorates start as project associates, and then they progress rather quickly in their career. They move up into management roles within a few years. But even our project associate actually doesn't require a degree in all of our departments. So that's one that is a broad spectrum where you're getting a lot of training in the department. Most of our project associates, I would say, have an undergrad. But it depends. There are going to be some positions that will require that master's level or require maybe an additional certification. And then we do have roles that will require a doctorate, medical writing, things like that. Some of our other positions, there's a lot of pharmacy roles that will require a PharmD, just because you're reviewing things and you have to really have that clinical and scientific knowledge. But as far as pursuing your master's, if you're on the fence, start in an entry level role, get some experience, and then you can always either go back for an autonomous master's that you can do while you're working and get that reimbursement, or you can take that break, that career gap, once you try it out, see if it's the direction that you really want to go.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had my master's, which ended up not directly relating to my current position. So I think it just really all depends on which path you're looking to take. And I think what Becky mentioned, if you do need a break from school, There's nothing wrong with looking at entry-level positions within the company and then seeing if it's the right job avenue you'd like, and possibly getting reimbursed.
What I would just recommend is that you all take advantage of your handshake profiles just like you would your LinkedIn profile. Make sure those are up to date. A lot of companies, including Icon, when we're sourcing for graduates, will look at that. Especially if you're attending a career fair with us, we get an opportunity to view your handshake profile before we join that session with you. So it's a great opportunity to highlight yourself, be working on your resume. Again, on the 21st at your virtual event, we will have recruiters available for one-on-ones and a couple group sessions, just talking about some various roles. We anticipate having a few internships that are going to get posted throughout February. Those will be required to be on site. So do pay attention to whether those are local to you all, where our Bluebell office is there, or if you're able to relocate yourself to one of the other offices before you apply. And just keep an eye out for opportunities. If you're upcoming graduates, I recommend trying to look at applying 2 to 3 months before you anticipate starting work, so you have time to go through the interview processes and things like that. And the careers website, I did pop in there. There's an early talent section that kind of gives you a summary of some of our programs for graduates and internships. There's blogs from all across the organization. There's some areas that talk about our culture, again, about those employee resource groups I mentioned earlier. So it's just a great resource, like Marilla said, to just explore, see what people do, what they like, what they don't like, and network. Get on LinkedIn, search for people in an industry, and it doesn't need to be a recruiter. Find somebody like the group that spoke with you here and say, why did you choose your career path? I'm considering that. Would you be available or, willing to answer a couple questions? Sometimes people are willing to mentor you just in that brief way of sharing about their experience, and you can kind of see it from their LinkedIn. You see somebody in a title that you hope to achieve someday. What did they do? What education background do they have? What experience do they have? What organizations and groups do they follow to get more insights on in their career? But those are just some suggestions, and hopefully we'll be talking to some of you all on the 21st.